The Aiel play an important role in The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Understanding the Aiel is necessary for understanding much of the series. They are incredibly complex and may prove difficult for first-time readers or watchers to understand. I'm the lore historian, and in this video, we will discuss the customs, history, and culture of the Aiel. The Wheel of Time Companion's entry on the Aiel, when adjusted to avoid significant spoilers, is as follows. Aiel, Old Tongue for dedicated. They were the people of the Aiel Waste. Fierce and hardy, they veiled their faces before they killed. Deadly warriors, with weapons or bare hands, they would not touch a sword even on the point of death, or ride a horse unless pressed. Aiel called battle the dance and the dance of the spears. They were divided into 12 clans: the Kareen, the Kadara, the Darin, the Goshen, the Miagoma, the Nakai, the Rain, the Sharad, the Shido, the Shiande, the Tardad, and the Tomanele. Each clan was divided into septs. They sometimes spoke of a 13th clan, the clan that is not, the Gen, who were the builders of Rhoidian. All believed that the Aiel once failed the Aes Sedai and were banished into the Aiel Waste for that sin, and that they would be destroyed if they ever failed the Aes Sedai again. Alright, that's a lot to digest. Let's break it down. The Aiel Waste is a large desert in the center of the main continent of the Wheel of Time, east of the Spine of the World and west of mysterious Shara. It is a harsh, dry land. The Aiel's history explains how they came to settle in such a desolate region, but that history is a secret to all but their wise ones and clan chiefs, who learn of it during their journey to the holy city of Rhoidian. The Aiel had a reputation in the Westlands for being unusually tough and dangerous. This was, in part, due to the environment in which they lived. The Aiel Waste was an incredibly deadly region, with limited water and venomous wildlife. This inherent danger, along with the Aiel culture of constant raids, meant that the Aiel who survived to adulthood were far hardier, stealthier, and more perceptive than people elsewhere. Anything less led to an early grave. However, despite this reputation as warriors, the Aiel refused to use swords for cultural reasons, instead preferring the spear, bow, and long knife. Furthermore, they did not have much experience with horses, being ill-suited to the climate in which they lived, and preferred not to ride them. The warriors wore a black dust veil whenever they expected to kill, and considered it very important to veil before doing so, even if they were under attack. The Aiel had a philosophy about life and death, wherein they considered life to be a dream which ended when they died. This belief is reflected in their battle songs and common phrases. Aiel would frequently say things like, "He has awoken from the dream," when a friend died. This belief about the nature of death led many Aiel to not fear dying, which only enhanced their reputations as warriors in the Westlands. The 12 clans of the Aiel were the primary way the Aiel organized themselves, but it was not the only way. Each clan held a number of septs, and the members of each clan were divided into warrior societies. These societies transcended clan and sept and are comparable to modern fraternities or sororities. There were 12 societies. They are as follows. The Black Eyes, Brothers of the Eagle, Dawn Runners, Knife Hands, Maidens of the Spear, Mountain Dancers, Night Spears, Red Shields, Stone Dogs, Thunder Walkers, True Bloods, and Water Seekers. Each had its own customs and duties. There are only 3 examples given for this, however. The red shields often acted as police, the stone dogs were often used as a rear guard during retreats, and the maidens of the spear were often used as scouts. As stated previously, Aiel clans often raided one another, but members of the same society would not fight each other. The Aiel had, by the standards of the Westlands, unusual and complex family structures. I will not go into the finer details here, but there are a few aspects one should be aware of. Firstly, the Aiel were a polygamous society, with some men marrying multiple women. These women were called sister wives. Secondly, close friends among the Aiel can adopt one another as first sisters or first brothers. The idea of adoptive siblinghood can make family trees convoluted. One was considered more closely related to one's mother than to one's father. First brothers and first sisters had the same mother, whether or not they had the same father. The exception was that children of sister wives would consider each other first siblings, for lack of a better term. Sister mothers and sister fathers were the first sisters and first brothers of one's mother, thus aunt and uncle through one's mother, and were considered closer than one's aunt and uncle through their father. Brother fathers and brother mothers were the first siblings of one's father. Second brothers and second sisters were the children of one's mother's first sibling. In our reckoning, a cousin on your mother's side. A father-sister or father-brother was the child of one's father's first brother, a cousin on your father's side. Great-father or great-mother referred to the father or mother of one's own mother, while one's father's parents were the second great-father and second great-mother. Second mother and second father were the terms for one's mother or father-in-law. A boy or man was expected to obey his mother before his father, while a girl or woman was expected to obey her father before her mother. Sometimes one's second father or second mother took priority, but these circumstances are not shown in the text. Suffice it to say, Aiel familial relationships are confusing, and nobody will blame me for not understanding it in the series. In fact, being confused by them will just put you in the protagonist's shoes. Ji et To was the Aiel code of honor which guided the Aiel in daily life. It was an extensive and complex system which confused even the Aiel at times. The word itself meant honor and obligation, or perhaps honor and duty, depending on which translation you prefer. There were several ways to obtain Ji, honor, in battle. The most honor came from touching an armed enemy and leaving him or her unharmed. Less came from taking an enemy prisoner, and the least came from killing. This is similar to the real-world practice of counting coup. The Aiel believed that any fool or child could kill, but that it took true skill to take someone alive or touch them without injury in battle. Those who were taken prisoner were made gaishain, who would serve their captors for a year and a day without attempting to escape or do violence. After serving this duty, they would return home and act as if it had never happened. If one Aiel offended another by acting dishonorably, or incurred To, they would seek to meet their To, which is to say, they would atone for their transgression, no matter how shameful the process was. The greatest shame of all was failing to meet To. Every Aiel would incur To at one time or another. The act of incurring To itself was not shameful, but failing to meet it was. An Aiel decided whether they had To or not, and it was considered deeply embarrassing if one did not know if they had To. Being reminded that one had To was considered shameful. Failing to meet To would incur a loss of Ji, honor. One had to decide for themselves how to meet their To. This was, in effect, deciding how much one's honor was worth. Setting it too high could be considered boasting, and setting it too low implied that one did not value their honor at all. There were myriad ways to incur do, and it was deeply confusing for wetlanders interacting with Aiel. For example, lying incurred considerable do, but merely letting someone believe a lie did not. Stopping someone from meeting their do by, say, forgiving them before they considered their do met, or by declaring that they had done no wrong in the first place, was considered deeply shameful. Speaking to a man of his second father or a woman of her second mother was considered hostile enough to justify drawing weapons. Under Jie-do, there were no excuses or justifications for acting in a way the Aiel would consider dishonorable or shameful. That being said, once one had satisfied Jie-do, the shame of their previous transgression was forgotten. Due to their reliance on Jie-do, the Aiel had few laws. Most Aiel laws involved water, murder, theft, and other harm done to certain members of society. It was possible to incur do without breaking the law, but breaking the law usually incurred do. There were a few laws common to all Aiel clans. A prohibition on murder, destroying or fouling water, theft, and harming a wise one, pregnant woman, child, or blacksmith. Other laws were unique to each clan. The Aiel built no jails, and did not imprison their criminals. Most penalties were corporal punishment. The Aiel were vigilant with the enforcement of their laws and would punish their own just as quickly as members of other clans. This was especially true for water-based crimes. Destroying a source of water earned the death penalty. Fouling a source of water without destroying it was not a capital offense, but it was close, considered to be on par with breaking oath or violating a truce. In Aiel society, Jie-do and the law were intermingled, and the practice of meeting one's do on their own applied to the law as well. An Aiel was expected to attempt to meet do when accused of a crime, and they usually did. Aiel have been known to walk freely to their own executions. Lastly, and most importantly for the early series, is the Aiel War. This was a deadly conflict which occurred about 20 years before the beginning of the series, in the years 976 through 978 NE. This war began when King Laman of Cairhien cut down Avendoraldera, enraging the Aiel who previously gave the rare Cora tree to the people of Cairhien as a symbol of peace. 4 Aiel clans crossed the spine of the world into Cairhien to punish Laman for his crime. They looted and burned the capital city of Cairhien, and the fighting spread across the Westlands into Andor and Tyr. At the Battle of the Shining Walls, outside of Tar Valon, King Laman was finally killed. The Aiel retreated across the spine of the world shortly afterwards. This was a recent enough event that many older characters in the Wheel of Time fought in the Aiel War. Remember it, and do not trust the Aiel to this day. Alright, that was a lot of information, but I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions which I did not address, I will be making more videos about specific aspects of the Aiel in the future. Feel free to leave any requests or specific questions in the comments. My primary source, aside from this series itself, was the Wheel of Time Companion by Robert Jordan, Harriet McDougall, Alan Romansuk, and Mariah Simons. Thank you.